Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prowess Live, favorite day of the week, Wednesday, where we are bringing you experts and how to and training and all the different things to help you on your online business manager career. I'm Ashley Connell, CEO and founder of Prowess Project, and it's always such an honor to be with all of you. I love it. I love it. I love it. And bring you all of these amazing people that I have met along my journey as an entrepreneur, really. And this one I'm particularly excited because she really knocked my socks off when she started talking about her expertise and who she truly loves to help. But before we get into it, I have a starter question. What was your first job? What was your first job? Put it into chat. What was your first job? I worked at Great Clips as a receptionist. It was actually great. Really enjoyed that. Baskin Robbins, love it. Jenna, Dairy Queen, love it. My dad worked at Dairy Queen. That was his first job. Timekeeping for high school sports, very cool, Holly. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We'll get into why I asked that a little bit later, but without further ado, drove deliveries for my mom's floral shop. That is so cool. Forgot about my paper route, day camp counselor. Ooh, Dina, that's awesome. I love it. Oh, guys, so good. Okay. So, like I said, with this guest, she said something to me that was so kind of shocking. And as she was saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, people need to be talking about this way, way, way more. And it's this idea of healing your abundance heartbreak. And when you sit there and think about that for a little bit, you're like, wait, abundance, this thing I'm always striving for, and the heartbreak because I didn't get it. I've never really thought about it like that. And what kind of trauma do I have around that term, or maybe feeling like I don't have it, and all of this. And so we just got talking more and more about her story and who she helps. And she said the other classic word that I hear, or phrase that I hear all the time from a lot of you and a lot of people in general, the corporate trauma and healing from that corporate trauma. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, our OBMs need to hear your story, need to hear your brilliance, your expertise, everything that you have to deliver. So without further ado, Jennifer Bloome. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Ashley. So great to be here.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this so much. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of like reading out your bio. I would much rather you tell us, give us the quick and dirty of how you got to this point in your career, and then we'll dive into what problem you solve for whom.
Okay. Well, it's been a little bit of a meandering path, so I'll keep it quick. I started out as an occupational therapist, and I got really frustrated because the system was such that the OTs were doing the paperwork and other people were doing the treatment. I decided I couldn't be in that environment anymore. And so I started a business for myself. I wanted a little bit more work-life balance anyway. So I started a business for myself, and I started working with women in the area of fertility and pregnancy, helping people who were with mind-body tools to help create pregnancy. But in the background, so all that was happening, and that was lovely. But in the background, my family was going through some really hard stuff. Out of 8 years, my husband was either unemployed or severely underemployed for 5 of them. We had medical stuff that had no insurance. So long story short, went through a personal bankruptcy. And there was so much shame and sadness, both from the journey to get there and the actual event. And I swam in that longer than I care to admit, but I started using my own tools. But it just really wasn't quite working. So it was just put a call out, like, what else do I need to see here? And I got introduced to a paradigm called soul language, which is all about putting tangibility to soul. And when I took a different perspective of the situation, and when I looked at it from that high level soul view, what I saw was this huge heartbreak that I had been through, was still going through, had a lot of wisdom in it. So there were things to heal, like shame and sadness and all of that, but it also had this wisdom. And what I realized was that I was using money as a measure of self-worth. Not like, oh, I have enough in the bank account, but like, am I enough as a human being? Now, that's icky, right? Use a technical term. And so I did work. I used that wisdom to be able to step into this newer version of who I am and how I show up. And so I shifted my practice a bit from looking at abundance, not only in abundance of creating babies, but creating other things that we want, whether that's money or health or time or partnership. And so that brings me to present moment.
Wow. I mean, I absolutely can relate to that idea of the money that's in the bank or the money that's coming in or the money that your salary or your take home is what you identify as your self-worth. Is that the problem that you see most for the people who come to you? Is that the starting problem and then you kind of uncover all the rest?
So I would say, I mean, the starting problem tends to be the frustration. It's like I am banging my head against the wall. I'm doing all the things. I'm doing it in the action world. I'm doing it in the internal world, and I'm not making any progress. And that self-worth piece does tend to show up a ton. I would say that's one of the biggest pieces. It might look different for different people, but that certainly is at its core.
Interesting. And that makes sense. And so most of the women who are listening to us now, they are navigating career pivots. So a lot of them have what we call a patchwork quilt-like background. So all sorts of different wonderful experiences. And then they are pivoting their careers to become an online business manager, which is scary. And a lot of the time, what we talk about is this idea of corporate trauma and this idea of what worked then is not going to work now. So how do you think through starting to heal some of that corporate trauma, or what are some of the first steps that you would consider?
Right. So I think that one of the big shifts, and let's talk about it simply from a money perspective to start with. When you're in a corporate position, when you are earning from somebody else, there's this whole idea that what you're doing is transactional.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I give you this, I do these
Yes.
duties, and then my paycheck comes.
Yes.
And so we have this idea that that's how money works.
Yes.
Well, that's the end result of your relationship with money. So money actually starts in a different place. It starts with us being in relationship with the physical resource of money and with divinity. Money and divine have no free will. We are the third element, and we are the ones who are leading that charge. We are the ones who are leading. Anything that goes into your bank account is as a result of that relationship. And so when you start to think about all of the ways that you have molded yourself and working really hard and trying to earn something, right? When you think about it from a different perspective, it allows you to be able to step into this new area that you want to be in.
And so when you're saying the new area, can you say more about that?
Yeah. So when you are going to start working for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of strain, there's a lot of pressure. And so that area, and it's like, I have to do this right. I have to get it done. Right. So much of that.
So much.
And it becomes like, so instead of doing the actions to receive money, did I do it well enough? It's, wait a minute, I get to plug it into a new understanding of how things flow to me.
Oh, that's interesting. So removing yourself from it being so transactional
Mhm.
and just completely flipping that on its head. So if it's not transactional, how do you think about calling that money or having it flow to you? How do you mentally picture that? That's really interesting.
So it's more of a receiving than a doing. And this gets kind of like a mind tangle because yeah, we live in a planet where you have 3D actions, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're an OBM or whether you're in corporate, you're doing things, right? You're doing things with your partners, you're all of that, right? So and we have all kinds of background ideas about money itself,
Hmm.
right? Which get in the way of being able to just simply say, I receive, and getting the inspiration for taking those steps to receive.
It is. So, what is coming up for me in this is the inspiration to receive. And then it makes me think about how we talk about at Prowess Project about being in the flow and being in the flow of doing what you love. And therefore, you'll do more of it. And you probably are very good at it because it comes naturally and all these things. And so, is that what you mean here?
Yes, absolutely. So the question becomes is what do I believe about receiving? So if I
Mm,
have an expectation that
mm,
what I put out into the world receives resources, and again, that's easy to do when you have the model of I go to work and I get a paycheck. I go to the
right.
grocery store, I want a banana, I give you money,
Right.
right? And so when you shift that understanding to, oh, I get to I get to expect that I receive from who I am. And as and that when so part of the cleanup work is again understand, do I believe I deserve to receive? Are there the conditions? And as you step into that new relationship with yourself, really, now you get an inspiration to do something that feels joyful and ability to receive from.
That makes perfect sense to me. You're just completely putting yourself into a new alignment and then inviting the inspiration, which therefore you will receive the resources that you need or call or however.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. My
Well,
brain is popcorn right now because I
well,
just
to circle back
yeah.
to the corporate trauma, like what do you believe about yourself based on what happened while you were there?
I'll give
Right?
you the
Yeah.
first one that comes to my mind is um the harder I work, the more I hustle, the more money I will make.
Mhm.
And it's about the time, button seats. It's not even about the end result.
Right. Absolutely. And the really confusing thing about all of this, Ashley, is that's not wrong. Right? There's a
Yeah.
huge section of the world where that works. But it works until it doesn't. It works until you're burnt out. It works until you've cracked under the pressure of it, right? And so we think, well, but it's worked in the past. Why shouldn't it be the same now? But if you're in a place of this heartbreak where you're trying to shift out of it, what your wisdom is, your soul, however you want to language that, is using this as a way to say, hello, there's another way to do this. There's another way to think about this.
Do you think you have to go through one to get to the other? Do you think you have to have experienced the hustle so that would be my trauma, right? Do you think
Yeah.
you have to experience the trauma in order to get to the enlightenment?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah,
I
hey, Buddha, can you go ahead and answer that for me real quick?
I think as human beings, we do learn through contrast.
Yeah.
I do think that. I don't personally, I don't think we're here to have struggle, hardship, learn lessons, all of that. I think we're here for expansion as we expand, the universe expands.
Yeah.
But we do learn through that contrast. And if money happens to be a teacher for you, right, if that was, for whatever reason, that's the way that that shows up. Because I do think that most of us have at least one area in particular that really has a struggle, whereas other places are like, yeah, I've got a few things, but no big deal. And so when we work ourselves into that pain place, it does serve as the opportunity to say, okay, I hurt so badly about this. I am willing to look at things in a way that I've never looked at them before. And that will lead us into a new place and into a new place of expansion.
Absolutely. And then it takes me to just society in general. Like, being an entrepreneur was never really talked about until in my childhood, until my mom had to do it because she had to have flexibility. And so it was always like, you get a job and you go to work, and it's that transaction. And so now it is fascinating that we don't really live in that society, or we live in a different society where we can question all of these things and we can create our own alignment.
Certainly. It's a lot, there's more space for it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's more resources that are readily available to give you the opportunity to think about making those changes.
Yes. I love it. Okay. So I mentioned that a lot of the women who are pivoting in their career, I mean, like you said at the very beginning, when you start a business, it's scary, or it can be,
right?
And it can be, it does take time. And so do you have any first steps on how a new OBM can start healing their abundance heartbreak, especially related to pivoting in their career and doing something unknown, yet it feels in so much of alignment?
Yeah, and I think that's the place to start. That I made a good decision.
Yeah.
I'm drawn here.
Yes.
This is my path. Whether, like, in my family, nobody did entrepreneurship, and they all think I'm nutso, right? Like, okay, whatever, leave the security of a job, go ahead. Right. And so if you can create whatever you need to create that touchstone of, yes, this is my path, I'm choosing it, I'm making a good decision here. And then so I think we tend to plow through the fear and the worry, and we do that with we cover them up with action. So I think right. I mean, of course we do. I mean, you have to, otherwise you can sit on the couch watching Netflix all day.
Right. Which sounds really good right about now, but
nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't grow the business if you do it.
No, it doesn't.
Right. But to have some sort of tool that you can manage your emotions with, because they're going to be there. They're going to be there. And so let's just say that that's normal. And how are you going to work through them other than just to ignore them and burn them the midnight oil?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I loved the word that you used, touchstone. Mm-hmm. I think that that's really important, and something that more people should consider having, whether it's a symbol, whether it's a feeling, whether it's something that brings them back to their why, or recharges them instantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. You said something else, which I'm so glad you did. So soul languages. Ooh, I love me some soul languages.
Super juicy, yes.
Can you give people an overview of what that is and how it aligns with first yourself and then also your business?
Absolutely. So soul language, again, it's a paradigm that puts tangibility to soul. According to this paradigm, when we come to this planet, we bring 3 languages with us. There's a purpose language, there's a skills and tools language, and there's a soulful personality language. And these are literally pieces of our soul. And they're not an archetype. They are literally pieces that we can talk to and receive from. And what was so important for me, and what I think what is so amazing when you bring it also into business, is it gives you a voice of what connection looks like. And who you are when you're connected. Because, so for example, my purpose language is pioneer. Pioneer is all about laying new pathways to get to new things. So when I'm connected with that, it feels amazing. I've got these great projects going. I'm out into the ethers, figuring out new things. When I'm disconnected, I start 15 projects. I never get any finished, and I'm constantly worried. Are people going to like this? Maybe I shouldn't, And I thought that was like something that was a flaw in me, right? Like, oh, why can't you do this, Jennifer? Why is it that you're always so worried about what other people think? Oh, when I learned my language, what I learned was, no, I'm just disconnected. That's all this is. It's just evidence. So that way, when you're starting a new business, when you have a really clear understanding of who you are and how you tick, you can understand, oh, wait a minute, here I am spinning. I'm not getting something done, or this is feeling really hard, or I'm frustrated at the results that are not coming. But instead of going, oh, well, maybe I'm just not meant to do this, you can recognize that, wait a minute, I'm just disconnected from my essence here. That's all this is. And then do whatever practice you'd have to come back into alignment.
Fascinating. So then do you help people first identify what their different soul languages are, and then develop those tools to help them get back into alignment? Is that like how you're?
Yes. So if the paradigm, there's a soul language practitioner, which I am one, identifies those languages. There's 107 different voices of soul. We each have 3 of those.
Wow.
And so then I teach how to get in connection and how to receive that information. Yeah.
And off the top of your head, can you share with us like a transformation that you have seen one of your clients make by identifying and then getting in alignment, and what he or she was able to reach by making that happen?
Yeah. So I have a client who, it's very interesting. She has, her purpose language is called caretaker, which is all about being a custodian of a belief or a principle.
Okay.
And then her soulful personality is called escalator, which is all about helping people rise. Well, it doesn't have to be people in her case, right? But what happened was she got so focused on creating in her business. I mean, she has built an incredible financial planning business, but she has a 18-month at home. And there was this real pull between, do I focus on the business, or how do I focus on, or do I become more this mother? And what we're able to have, the conversation we have is, what do you want to be a caretaker of? What do you want? What's that guiding principle? And as she was able to come back and realize, wait a minute, I was thinking that guiding principle was helping in the business and creating movement and shifts and escalation for people in the business. But what I really want to do is also have this guiding principle that I'm a mom. And so she gave herself permission to shift her business model a bit so that she could have the balance. And it there wasn't now 2 a.m. worrying in the middle of the night, right? Like, what do I do? Should I do this action? Should I do that action? Should I stop this business activity? Should I start this business activity? She now has a better set of principles to ask when she's considering what she wants to do.
Wow. That's amazing. What a good example. So well, first, Yes, Angela, that is a real struggle. Yeah. I also want to say, everyone in the audience, feel free to ask your questions into chat. I'm curious about how someone could do what your client does in creating the business and life that is more in alignment, and how you walk them through that.
So there's a piece of the puzzle we haven't really talked about
Oh, okay, perfect.
yet, which is right. These beliefs that we have are literally hardwired into our brain. And so part of the work is being able to, number one, see them, because it's
Yeah.
like wearing sunglasses. You don't realize that you're being filtered, right? So part of it is being able to have some sort of a tool that can help you release those beliefs. So I work with EFT, emotional freedom technique. There's a number of body-based tools. There's a lot of different ways to work with beliefs, but that's the way I do it, because it's not as simple as just changing your mind.
Right.
Right. Right. So when you can work with a tool that helps you to kind of reorganize what you are, where those beliefs came from, because they can come from a lot of different places. They, before the age of 7, we're a sponge. We're picking up everything as if it were truth. And that's important for human survival, right? When we were way back when, they didn't have time to teach you how to make a fire. You had to observe it, and then you learned it. And right. Well, but we pick that up from everything, whether we're watching from movies, from books, from our teachers, our religious leaders, any of that. And so to be able to have something that can, so anyway, we take, as a sponge, we take that in, and it comes in as like a rule in our brain. I have to work hard. I had a client yesterday whose parent told them, why are you so curious? Just be quiet. Children are to be seen and not heard. Or we can't afford that. Why are you asking for that? We can't afford that. Why do you think you should have whatever you want? Right? These are things that we put in, and they're in the brain, they're structured into the brain. And then if we try to break that rule, the brain goes, no, that's not safe. So that's a part of the process as well, to be able to shift into, to be able to get enough of those the belief voices out of your head to be able to hear and follow this new understanding of who you are and what you want.
Wow. And that's called
EFT, emotional freedom technique.
And what does that make up? Like, what is that?
So EFT is it's a tool that combines tapping on acupressure points with specific language.
Awesome.
And so what you're doing is it's based in Chinese medicine. You're clearing your energy lines, and you're working within the realms. It's really cool, the research that they've done recently to show how you are actually reformulating the memories that you have in the brain. And so you learn to bring peace to those more traumatic things that you've experienced. When trauma, whether when you're a kid, trauma is dropping your ice cream cone, right? Or whether it's something that's something more that we think of as traditional trauma. But we're teaching the brain that we're safe, even if we go a different direction. And so that's what that tool is all about.
So, and apologies that I kind of bounce all over the place here. What is the ideal sequence of work that you take your clients through? Is it understanding the frustration first, then the EFT, then the soul language on how to use it, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, so I will give it to you as literally as possible, because it really depends on the person. And we enter in this place of the pain. What are you longing for? And what, so, asking a question of since you don't have this, what are you believing about yourself because of that? And that's a really great entry point. And then depending on whether there's just if there's a lot of emotion, because EFT also helps to bring down just anxiety, worry, fear. And it's a tool that a practitioner you can go to a practitioner, but it's also something you can use on your own. It's one of the things I love about it. But anyway, so you come in, you take a look at, looking at that wisdom, like what is this really trying to show you? And then from there, I love having those languages first, because we can then just sort of interject those into the conversation as you're starting to shift beliefs. Then you can also lean on those languages a bit, and it's a back and forth from that point.
That makes perfect sense. Holly, yeah, what are you believing about yourself because of this? As soon as you said that, Jennifer, I was like, wow, yeah, wow. And I love just the idea of stopping and thinking about that. Like, we're all so overwhelmed in our day-to-day life. And so who is your typical client who comes to you seeking guidance?
So usually the person who comes to me is somebody who's already tried a whole bunch of things. People tend to say, well, I'm going to give this a shot because I've tried everything else. And then by the time we get to the end, they're like, oh, I wish I'd found you sooner.
I love it.
But so typically a person who's in a cycle of thought, in a cycle of things that are happening that they just cannot get out of, and they're just ready for the cycle to end. They also have this inkling that there's something bigger, like, meaning there's something bigger for them. Not that there's something like the boogeyman in the closet or whatever, right? But they're getting this hit that, you know what? I think there's something I just can't see myself. Mm-hmm. And so then those are the kinds of people that I tend to work with.
Amazing. And then what do your, so I want to shift a little bit into your business and the mechanics of it, because everyone here is an online business manager, and you could be like the ideal candidate for a lot of the women who work here. So, who are listening here.
Yeah.
But tell us, what different ways do you support your clients, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's group? How do you think about serving them?
Right. So right now in the season of my business, it's mostly one-on-one. In the past, I've had online communities. I've had group sessions. Mm-hmm. I do like webinars, from that kind of presentation.
Awesome. And so it obviously, this work is deeply, deeply personal. Are you finding that the one-on-one is just the most transformative?
I am a human that prefers one-on-one.
Ah,
when I want to do something, that's my preference. I do a few things in groups, but I love that one-on-one attention. So yeah. I love the transformation personally. I just love the transformation that comes from one-on-one.
Yeah.
Certainly, and the languages are individual.
Sure.
But I also think, there is a lot that can come out of, group tapping, and that kind of thing as well. There's a lot of power in that, particularly for somebody who is maybe isn't at a 10 in terms of feeling really, pain, right? But somebody who's more in the 4 or 5 and just needs a little bit of assistance, that can be effective as well.
Well, I love that you're walking, you're talking the talk, walking the walk. I mean, what you said to me was, I prefer one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like, I work best in one-on-one. And you gave yourself the permission to be like, hey, this is how I want to show up, and how I want my offers to be, and how I want to work with my clients. And I just want all the OBMs in the audience to hear that. Like, that's perfectly acceptable. And if anything, may draw more abundance to you because of it. You could be in more of alignment.
Well, absolutely. I found, because I had a group that I ran for about a year, and I would show up to the calls, and it was stressful for me because, again, I wanted people to get something out of it. but I was always, I mean, I do a good job of scooping my stuff into a bowl when I'm in the moment, but
Right.
it was stressful before, and it wore me down afterwards. And
Yeah.
Jennifer, why are you doing this? Right. And so, and it is easy to listen to all of the strategies that are out there, and you should be doing this and you should have that. And I agree completely. My business is most abundant when I'm happy.
Wow.
What do you know?
Oh my gosh, mic drop. Like, do y'all hear this? And oh man, I love that you said that, because again, if you're looking at corporate, right? Corporate, no one cared if you were happy. No one cared if you were in alignment. You were a cog in the wheel. Like, if anything, like, I grew up watching cartoons where the people went to work with a sad face, and they were there all day long. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and those are some of the beliefs and the wounds, right?
Yeah.
That you get to do some healing around. Like, it doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter here. I'm just gonna, right. And that's also that's a pretty big switch to flip when you go into your own business and you're looking for the guideposts and the guardrails and the how do I do this. And yes, there are important structure things to understand about that. There are, clearly, and your voice and your connection is truly going to make an impact on what it is that you bring to the world.
Amazing. And so you were talking about earlier the soul language, and how you have a personal soul language, but your business has a soul language.
Yes. So, fun fact, you also have languages that support your relationship with money. But so we'll put that to the side for a second.
Yeah.
So, whatever it is that you're creating also has an essence of its own, a soul of its own, and it has its own set of 3 languages that support it. Sometimes it's even easier to hear your business languages because they're outside of you. Your personal languages get all wrapped up in all the gunk of us being human, but the languages for your business can be pretty crystal clear.
Wow.
And then that can also help to formulate the direction that you take with your business. My business languages are, well, they're all about working with the laws of the universe to create self-acceptance.
So cool.
And that's all, and it's just, and that's also reassuring to me again.
Right.
Like, that's underneath all of it. That's really what I'm helping people step into: a full self-acceptance, understanding, claiming of who they are through, using the laws of the universe as backup.
Wow, it's so powerful. It really, really is. Like, you almost can't fight it. When you put it like that, you can't fight it. It's so much easier to go with the flow. It's so much easier to step into your power.
Yeah, and I just saw a question down here about ways to help us stop spiraling and remember to pause and use the tools, because these languages can be as powerful as they want, but if you don't remember to connect with them, then they do you no good. But it's human nature, right, to be in that space of fighting it or being in fear or worry. And so I think there's a couple of things that can be really helpful. One of which is, so I think look at it from both a proactive and a reactive way. Proactively, putting some sort of simple practice in place on a daily basis. So, for example, I connect with my team. That's what I call my languages. My team in the shower in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, hello. What do you want me to know today? And it's just something I do on a regular basis. So that's just an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And when I can tell when I drop that, when I don't do that. So having something just really simple, having as many Post-it notes as you can possibly put, so something that says tools. And one of the other things you can do with your team of languages is say, hey, give me some sort of physical signal. Ooh. So I get like a squeeze in my solar plexus. If there's something I need to pay attention to, that's sort of the signal that I've worked out with them. And I'm kinesthetic. So that's, you could be a visual cue. It could be like, oh, every time I see a butterfly, or, it could be whatever works for you. But when I get that squeeze, it's like, okay, I'm spiraling. Am I going to make the choice to step out? And some days it's just, no, I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to get up and I'm going to try again tomorrow. And sometimes I can say, oh, that's right. I need to go tap for a little bit or do a meditation, or because those are the tools that work best for me.
Jennifer, wow. Wow, 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 wow. We're at time, which sucks, because there's so much more. But how can people reach out to you to learn more about what you're doing? Gosh, just yes. How?
Yes. So I'm on socials. I'm out on Instagram. I'm at my website, which is jenniferbloome.com. And on the website, there's one of the first exercises I do with people, which is called Tracing the Heartbreak. That's available if people want to reach out and do that for themselves. That's available as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. One last thing that we always like to ask our guests, just to give our OBMs some insight on day-to-day business of solopreneurs like you. What is an operational challenge or opportunity that you have in your business that you are facing today?
Oh, social media.
Yep.
Oh, the necessary evil. It's something I need to do some belief work around. Obviously, I would say that, creating just that ability to communicate, and bringing that message out, and strategy, and making it fun, and habit forming. Yes.
No, that's such a good one. And we hear that a lot. It is. Social media is overwhelming. And then you ask yourself, like, hey, if it's not in alignment for me, do I need to be doing it? I don't know. Yeah. Well, again, thank you, everyone who is listening. We will be back here next week. Jennifer, again, such a pleasure.
Well, thank you for the conversation. I really had a good time.
Oh, good. Thanks. Bye, y'all.